Hello, I'm Sue McMahon, Cookery Editor of Woman's Weekly magazine, and I'm going to be making a spiral pasta bake with a cheesy topping. The first ingredient is 175 grams of pasta spirals, and these I've already cooked. I need 1 medium onion, which is peeled and chopped, then 500 grams of minced meat. The recipe works with either beef or lamb. Then 4 sticks of celery, 2 tablespoons of plain flour, a 400 gram can of chopped tomatoes, and it needs a stock cube. Depending on what meat you use, you can either use a beef one or a lamb one. And then for seasoning for the flavour, I'm going to add Worcestershire sauce and salt and pepper. And for cooking the onion and the mince, you'll need some oil, so 2 tablespoons of a cooking oil. To make the meat sauce, the first thing you need to do is heat the oil in a deep frying pan and then add the onion to it. And the onion needs to be cooked over a medium heat for 4 to 5 minutes until it starts to soften. So once the onion has softened and is very lightly starting to change colour, you don't want it to be too brown, but just starting to go golden. You can then add the meat and then break it up. This is fresh mince that I'm using, but if you want a very economical way of doing the recipe, you can actually use frozen mince, which you can cook straight from frozen. I'm going to keep stirring this until the meat starts to turn brown. And as it's starting to go brown, I'm going to add the celery. Now this needs to be cooked for a further 4 to 5 minutes so that the celery will soften and that the meat will cook all the way through. So now that the meat looks brown, I'm going to stir in the flour, and this is going to thicken the juices. I just need to cook it for 1 or 2 minutes. So it'll cook out the flouriness of it. So that's thickened a little bit now. So I'm going to add the tomatoes and also 150 millilitres of hot water. While it comes to the boil, I'm going to add the stock cube and a good dash of Worcestershire sauce and some salt and freshly ground black pepper. So this needs to simmer for just a few minutes for the flavours to all combine. Once the sauce has simmered for a few minutes, I'm going to tip in the cooked pasta and then stir it to coat it with the sauce. So this is my sauce ready to put into the serving dish. The cheese sauce is a classic roux sauce recipe where I use equal quantities of butter and flour. So I'm using 30 grams of each of these, to which I'm going to add 300 millilitres of milk. And to add some extra flavour, I'm going to use a teaspoon of dry mustard powder. And for the cheesiness, I'm going to add 60 grams of mature grated cheddar cheese. So to make the cheese sauce, I've melted the butter in a saucepan and I'm going to tip in the flour. And then I'm going to mix this well so that it forms a paste. So that's how it is once I've added the flour. I'm just cooking it for about a minute so that there isn't any floury taste to the sauce once it's finished. And then I'm going to gradually add the milk, just a small amount at a time, and beating it to make sure it's smooth before then adding the next amount of milk. So you can see that I'm waiting for it to look smooth between each addition of the milk. Now the final lot of milk. So now I have the nice smooth sauce. I'm going to season it with some salt and pepper. And I'm going to turn the heat down so that it's fairly low. And I really like the flavour of mustard with cheese. And then the essential ingredient for the cheese sauce is the cheese. So I'm going to add half of the grated cheese to the sauce. The rest then gets used as a topping once I've assembled the recipe. So I'm just going to leave it on the heat until the cheese melts. So that's my finished cheese sauce. So to assemble this recipe, I'm going to tip the mince and the pasta into the dish, and then I'm going to spoon the cheese sauce over the top, or pour it to begin with, and then I spread the cheese topping over the mince, and then I scatter over the top the rest of the cheddar cheese. So this now goes into an oven at 200 degrees centigrade, which is gas 6, for 30 to 40 minutes. So this is the pasta bake all ready to serve. I normally find if people are hungry, it serves 4, but if you just want a light meal, then it can serve 6 if you serve it perhaps with some garlic bread and some salad. So I'm assuming that people are hungry, so I'm going to serve a quarter of this. It doesn't look particularly photogenic, but I can assure you it does taste delicious.